welcome to the Integrated Schools Podcast. I'm Andrew, a white dad from Denver, and I'm just dropping into your feed because today, May 17th, is the 66th anniversary of the Brown v. Board decision. Last year, leading up to the 65th anniversary, Courtney and I put together a 6-part miniseries called The Stories We Tell Ourselves, moving from desegregation to integration. Now, it's in no way a comprehensive history, but I think that it complicates the stories we tell about Brown v. Board in really important ways. The stories we tell about desegregation efforts have a huge impact on how we think about and interact with schools today. And I hope that a deeper, maybe more honest assessment of the history can be a first step in moving us closer to real integration. In part 1 of the series, we speak with Rucker Johnson from UC Berkeley about his longitudinal research following students from before and after court-ordered desegregation. His work highlights many of the benefits that came from our probably too short-lived attempt at desegregation. In part 2, we're joined by Noliwe Rooks to talk about some of the real costs from the way that we implemented desegregation. From the loss of black teachers and administrators to the loss of community schools, we grapple with the fact that our attempts at desegregation were not without harm. In part 3, we're joined by Amanda Lewis, who, along with John Diamond, wrote a book called Despite the Best Intentions that looks at segregation within school walls. We know that simply putting kids in the same building isn't sufficient to eliminate segregation. From AP classes to school discipline policies, Dr. Lewis helps us confront the ways our supposedly race-neutral policies have racist impacts. For part 4, we're joined by David Hinojosa to try to move beyond the racial binaries of black and white and complicate the story with some Latinx perspective. We discuss other important desegregation court cases like the Lemon Grove case and the Mendez case, and we talk a bit about the ways that race gets defined and redefined to suit the needs of the white power structure in our country. For part 5, we set aside the scholarship and speak with 2 parents, Greg and Carol. It's one of my favorite episodes we've ever done. They are both black parents in different parts of the country who have opted into mostly white, quote-unquote, good schools. They share the challenges they face every day as some of the only people of color in their school communities. If part 2 showed us that desegregation was hard, this episode shows us that so often it still is hard. Finally, for part 6, we grapple with what we learned with Anna, who you remember from past episodes. So we're going to be promoting 1 episode every Sunday for the next 6 weeks. They won't show up in your feeds again, but there are links to them all in the show notes, and they all have BVB at 65 in the title. We'll also be discussing each one on the Patreon page, patreon.com/integratedschools. And some of our local chapters will be hosting podcast club discussions about some or all of the episodes. So check the website, integratedschools.org, to find your local chapter and connect. You know, in a coincidence that seems maybe a bit too on the nose, May 17th, today, was also Integrated Schools founder and my former co-host Courtney's birthday. The hole left by her death feels particularly large today. She was very proud of this mini-series, and while re-listening to the episodes has been hard, it's also reminded me of her brilliance and of how important she thought stories were. These stories are one small piece, but hopefully they help you have a deeper and more complicated narrative, because that's how we know better. And if we know better, we can do better. See you soon.